Have a seat. We're going to get two of our young saint missionaries to come and share with us what happened last month or a couple of weeks ago or whatever. Amos and Lockie love being up the front. That's why you've not seen them before up here. I don't know why that is. I'll get you another mic. We'll grab that one too. You starting? What happened to your beard, man? I remember that going to PNG and you come back with so many bugs in it, you just had to come off. That was my excuse anyway. But yours are still in there. Yeah. I can see. Yeah, good.
They're mostly out. Hi, everyone. I've just written down something to say, as I don't do very well in front of people. I've done a little slideshow afterwards just of the building trip. It's nothing too fancy, and it might be a little bit messed up, but I apologise. Before that, I'd like to share a story of something that happened when we first got there. It is difficult to understand the situation of the people in Yifki without having lived there. Each trip I've learned a little more, and this is just another example. A little background for those who don't know. In Haywa culture, when someone dies, it is because of an evil spirit. The women are generally the ones possessed by the evil spirits, and to be rid of the evil spirit, the possessed woman, including children, must be killed. This practice has been done away with in Yifki as they have accepted the gospel. It has changed the culture of the people. When we arrived in Yifki, they were trying to evacuate a family on the return flight. The family had fled their village due to murder threats, as someone in the village had died. They had fled to Yifki because they knew they would find refuge there. In the past, they wouldn't have had anywhere to run to, as no one would be willing to take a woman accused of being possessed. However, one of the church leaders in Yifki had taken them into their home at risk to his own family, and the community had been trying to arrange to have them flown out. The family was able to take our returning flight out to another area, far enough away to be out of harm. The church there has rehomed multiple people needing a safe place to live. Just after they left, news was received that more people in the village they were from had died, as the sickness was going through the village. This would have made their situation a lot more dangerous if they had not been flown out. It really hit home being there to witness this event and see firsthand the change that the light of the gospel has made in Yifki. Also, the vulnerability of these people, so isolated in the jungle with no protection, and plenty of tribes still hostile toward them, yet still making a stand for what is right because of the example of Jesus. The importance of the school becomes a reality as you begin to understand how it is affecting the lives of these people. They are currently taught by Christian teachers who consider themselves as missionaries to the children. The education they are receiving is empowering them to bring lasting change to their village and will help to bring the gospel to the surrounding villages through the children that learn there. The dorms will eventually allow people from far away to attend the school. The school itself is a gift from God. The cost and difficulty to build deep in the jungle make it evident that God is the one at work. The situation is still fragile. They still have many enemies, and there are few mature elders to deal with all the issues that arise. They really need a lot of support. Please remember these people in your prayers.
All right. I was trying to think about what I'd say today. I got home and I was writing out probably about 5 or 6 pages of sort of incoherent rambling. And I thought, well, that's just going to be more confusing than anything else if I try and say all that. So I thought I'd just wing it and just sort of say what sort of stood out to me most on the trip. There's probably 2 main things. One being, I think, largely what Amos was talking about too, and then the significance of the school in Yifki. And I think before I went over and hearing about the school, and obviously the church here has been supporting and been praying for and praying into and working with New Tribes and Jonathan with the school, but I sort of was a bit like, oh, yeah, it's a cool idea to have a school, but sort of felt like a little bit of a nice to have sort of a thing. So I was sort of like, oh, surely there's plenty of things we could be doing, and it's really hard to explain because now having been there, it's so much more than a nice to have. It's an integral part to what I think God's doing in that community, and to the point where I guess one thing is there's it's not uncommon, or it does happen sadly, that missionaries will go in like Jonathan and Susan doing, and it's with New Tribes and all the other different missionary groups that are doing it. They'll go in and they'll sort of spend their time. They'll learn the language. They will translate the Bible. They'll do all that. They'll teach the gospel, and they'll spend their sort of 5 or so years, and then say, all right, well, this community is now on their own. Those communities often, I wouldn't say often, I don't know the percentage, but it isn't uncommon for those communities then, after a couple of years or a half a generation, to turn away from what they've learned about the gospel, because they're just not getting, it's not ingrained throughout the whole community. And I think what Jonathan and Susan are doing is just so much more than that by doing the school. And it's interesting because when Jonathan and Susan went and talked to New Tribes when they were talking about starting the school, it wasn't super supported, I guess. The leadership gave their grace and said, yes, go for it, but this isn't actually our forte. Like, this isn't what we're really doing here. And it's only now that they're starting to notice the effects of what the school's doing. And so the leadership's actually sort of starting to talk to other people, other missionaries, and saying, oh, you should talk to Susan and Jonathan about starting a school. So they're starting to kind of get a lot more questions now from the leadership and from other groups, and I think they're just sort of seeing how effective and how important that school is. Like Amos said, it is very, very Christian, God-based, scriptural. The little presentation they did for us for the anniversary, it had a devotion through it. They sung some Christian songs. Like, it's a very Christian-based school, and from the region, I think, is there 80 kids ish at the school? It comes and goes. They're not like very regimented like our schools are. It's a little bit relaxed, but so from the region though, so there's villages all around Yifki, and they are starting to send their kids that are out of Yifki to Yifki to get education. And so these villages are very much living in a traditional ancestral, as Amos talked about, the spiritual ways of doing things, and the witch doctors and killing and all that sort of stuff. So these kids are getting taught at a Christian school, going back to their community that is actually not a Christian community and not a faith-based, no believers and that sort of thing. So that the way it's working in that whole community and what it's going to build for the next generation is, you can't really measure it, yeah. That was the first thing. And secondly, the other thing that really stood out to me was I got a few photos. Maybe chuck the photos up, Donna. So it's just about where the mission base in Goroka, which we stayed for 2 nights on the way home. So that's the first one. They're just random photos, but it's just try to give you an idea. I should have taken more. of the village and or the mission base at Goroka. So Goroka's a city of however many, it's probably size of Gympie, I suppose, and it's pretty rough and wild. But they've got these. They've got two villages, new tribes. They've got two mission bases that they're actually compound and they're fenced and security guarded, and they've set them up in a way that is very livable, I'd like to say. I guess we get the idea of missions, and because often when we get a missionary here, and it's the same when I was a kid, all growing up, you have a missionary come, and they're usually the frontline missionaries that are on the ground, in the jungles, in the really dangerous, or and especially for me, you think about these guys are in there translating, like learning languages, writing languages that have never been written before, and they got to phonetically write them, and then they're translating Bible, and I'm thinking, well, that's a divine gift that is an anointing that I don't have. So you sort of get a little bit removed from the idea of being a missionary because it just seems so impossible. When we actually spent some time in the mission base, we got to get an idea of how much actually goes on to get those missionaries into the villages, and there is just so much work required there and need, and it's actually not that far out of reality for anyone to actually go over and spend some time and do stuff. There's stuff like childcare, there's mechanics, there's builders, there's doctors, there's dentists, there's a hairdresser, there's teachers. Yeah, they always need teachers because there's actually a school. There's a school in the village there as well. So some of the missionaries will send their kids will stay in the village rather than out in the actual jungle. So yeah. So anyway, you can skip through Donna. That's just another photo of those just motorbikes everywhere, and they just ride around on motorbikes. There doesn't seem to be an age limit or how many people you can fit on the back of it. So that's the school that's there. That's one shot of the side of it. There's I don't actually know how many kids were actually go to the school, but it seemed fairly big. You can go to the next one. That's the other side of the school, and down the back there's the footy and soccer field. And while we're there, they're actually having a competition with what was the other one? Another mission group over the other side of Goroka. So they had a big volleyball. No, it's a different missionary group. Yeah, so they had a big volleyball comp going on there while we're there, so it was pretty impressive. And a lot of them seem to be Americans, and they really have a passion for their sport. Next one, Donna. That was the hairdresser down the bottom, and I think that's the doctor's centre up the top of that one on the right. Next one. That's in the gym, so it's actually a really, really cool setup. It's a big gym, and and we were staying a fair way away from it, and you could hear it. They were getting pretty rowdy. Next one. That's the soccer field. Oh, they got a petrol station there. Yeah. Next one. And that's just as we left. That was with all of us that went over. So, I will say though, if anyone has any more interest, questions or anything, Amos and Hudson and Moses have been over. All of us can explain stuff probably better than we can up here. So and maybe in more depth and whatever else. So yeah, we're all too happy to talk about it.
Thanks for going, guys.
Awesome.